What does this dominant want from their submissive? Not what does the dominant look for in a submissive, but what does the dominant want from their submissive, want out of their dynamic with their submissive? And I think the answers can be similar, if not the same in a lot of cases. But I see a differentiation between the two. So what does the dominant look for, and what does the dominant want on a consistent basis from their submissive? So I thought about that, and my initial thought was, well, it absolutely depends on the dominant. If you have a very, very strict, very, very busy master type that doesn't like a lot of pushback, that really just likes you to do what the fuck you're told and make their life easier, they're going to be looking for a completely different set of things than a daddy dom or a mommy dom or a caregiver. So, just like a rigger, if you are a rigger and the only reason that you are looking for a partner is to have scenes where you can practice your rigging and play in that space, that's going to be something very different. It very much depends on the dominant. So submissives, ask your dominant specifically, what makes you feel more dominant? What makes you feel empowered as my dominant? What makes you feel respected? What makes you feel honored? What arouses you? What arouses your dominance? All of those. So I would encourage you, some subtypes, have that conversation with your dominant. But for me, these are the things that I personally want. I have them because my submissive is awesome. And these are the things that I would be very upset if I did not have these things. The first one, and these are in no particular order. These are just, they came in this way in my brain. No hierarchy, no particular order. One of the traits is humility. In a submissive, I believe a dominant wants their submissive to have the ability to be corrected and to grow. So to me, if you're not humble enough as a submissive to be corrected and to change your behavior if need be, and to grow and to develop yourself, that's a no-go. Because what is there for me to mold? What is there for me to lead? What is there for me to if you're doing something in this manner that it would actually please me more if you did it like this, and I don't have the ability because you're not humble enough to be corrected, to look inside of yourself and to adjust if need be, that I don't like. I'm looking for humility in a submissive. I'm also looking for respect, that they honor my position of authority. And this is a lot of things, submissives. You need to understand that you have tremendous power in your ability to make your dominant feel more dominant. And one of the things is respect. Honor their position of authority. Even if they're not on the top of their game one day, that doesn't mean that you start disrespecting them. They don't have to be overtly in this aggressive, primal state to be dominant. You should have that respect for their position of authority, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm also looking for attention, where my submissive notices my patterns and my preferences. They pay attention. Submissive's attention is so, so valuable, especially because a lot of dominants are very, very busy, high achievers. They've got a lot that they're managing, a lot on their plates. So for the submissive to have attention and be mindful about their dominance patterns, watch for patterns, watch for preferences, etc. I also think that initiative, that the submissive looks for ways to serve. The submissive actively looks for ways to serve. And I mentioned this in the roundtable that we did on Wednesday, which was amazing. Oh my gosh. And this is something that we talked about there. One of the questions that was posed to me was, what are the pros and cons or the differences of having a female submissive versus a male submissive? And one of the things that I said was that one of the most striking differences that I've found having a female submissive is the attention to detail and just the initiative. When she sees something, she acts on it. She doesn't wait for me to point it out, get exhausted enough and then say, hey, can you jump in? She just looks. She's constantly observing my patterns, my preferences, things like that. So, and then initiative. Don't just observe and pay attention. Do something about it. Take the initiative, okay? Another one is enthusiastic response. So when I tell my submissive to do something, I don't get a, okay, fine, I guess. You know, none of that. I want enthusiasm. I want fucking enthusiasm. I want it to please her to please me. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an enthusiastic response. I'm looking for those ears to peak up. I'm looking for that interest to spark, okay? When I speak, when I give a command, enthusiastic response. Another one that's really, really important, that not only to me, but I feel like to a lot of other dominants, is that the submissive allows autonomy. A lot of times it is a stereotype, maybe a stigma, that submissives are so needy, so clingy, that they are just like constantly glued to the dominant, and that's what submission means. To me, that's not what healthy DS looks like. I want to be able to take space, have my introverted time, get away, create if I need to, right? If I need that time away, and not have my submissive freak out, internalize it, take it on as a personal offense, whatever. The fact that there is autonomy, where I'm not expected to be constantly attached, to be constantly connected, that there is respect for my space, respect for my independence, respect for my autonomy. Another one that kind of goes into this is emotionally stable. As a dominant, I believe dominants want an emotionally stable submissive, myself included. And this plays into the last point, that if I take space, whatever, it's not a spiraling thing. That my submissive has enough emotional stability that they don't internalize everything, they don't take everything personally, they don't get offended every 5 seconds. They're not so touchy that I feel like I have to walk on eggshells in my actions, in my speech, whatever. Submissives, you need to have enough emotional health and emotional stability to be with the dominant and to allow them to have that emotional autonomy. If you define submission, submissives, you define submission as constantly being attached to your dominant's hip, and that they, without their voice, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to act, I feel like they're actually training codependency, not dominance. I don't feel like that's a dominant move. I think that's a poor leader move. And I think if you as a dominant set it up where your submissive has to always be attached to you, that they cannot function without you, you are crippling them. You are not leading them. So I think as a leader, you empower your followers. And if you do not consider dominance to be leadership, you don't know what dominance is. And you need to come join my Patreon and hang out with me and my community. Because dominance is leadership. In a BDSM context, we add a whole bunch of beautiful, fun, creative ways to play and express. But at its core, it's leadership. And you are doing your followers, your submissives, a disservice by making them so dependent on you that they cannot function without you. That is not leadership, that's codependency. Next point here is humor and enjoyment. Oh my gosh, I don't feel like this is discussed hardly at all. I want to actually enjoy my submissive, not just in a scene. Mind-blowing concept. I don't want to be annoyed with them when I'm not beating their ass. But I don't hear that a lot. And this actually came up in the round table also, about how someone pointed out that the draw to me for my submissive and vice versa is we genuinely like like each other and enjoy each other's company. And we find each other to be very funny and humorous and enjoyable. And we have very compatible communication. All of those things just build up enjoyment. You should be able to enjoy your submissive. If not, you're going to have so much bitterness and resentment. Because if the only time that you can enjoy your submissive is in a scene and you don't want to do a scene, you're too tired, you're too stressed, you're worn out, what position does that leave you in, dominance? Not a good one. I can be dominant and still laugh. I can be dominant and still enjoy myself. What a concept. Dominance can laugh. Dominance can smile. Dominance, you know what I mean? Like, we have this in our head that dominants are just all the time. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for looks and commands and intensity, right? But then there's also a time to just have fun. There's also a time to just build devotion in making your submissive feel comfortable just being in your presence. But if you don't enjoy them, that's a huge facet of connection and devotion that you are going to miss. Vulnerability was the next point, and why I think vulnerability is so incredibly important is I need to know what's going on in my submissive's mind, in her heart, her perspectives, her thought. If she withholds that vulnerable information from me, I lose very, very, very important, necessary data. And it kind of cripples me. How do I know where to lead? How do I know where to guide? How do I know where to add in more discipline, more incentives? How do I know how to manage things, how to manage moods? All of those things. I don't know that unless my submissive is vulnerable. So I think that is a very valuable quality in submissives that I think a lot of dominants look for. And also vulnerability personally makes me feel more dominant. When I see that she's open up to me and she's softening and she's sinking beneath me in her vulnerability, that just fuels my dominance. We're all doing kinky stuff. It's good for everyone to be a bit vulnerable for both doms and subs. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. You came in late. The question that was asked was, what does a dominant want from their submissive? So I sat down and I jotted down about 12 points that are really, really important to me that I really value in my submissive. So that's what we're talking about right now, the importance of vulnerability in terms of what drives or what draws a dominant to a submissive in the relationship. But I 100% agree. I have to practice vulnerability with her too, where there are moments that it doesn't make me happy that I have to be vulnerable. But what my vulnerability does in those small instances when it is necessary is it shows her that I am also human. And hopefully, correct me if I'm wrong, builds more intimacy and builds more devotion. That is always the goal. And she said yes. Okay. Another one, and this is big, 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 big. We talk about this on the bottom side, looking up at the top side. But this one also applies in the reverse. Trustworthiness. I need to know that I can trust my submissive. I need to know that they're not a game player, that they're not a manipulator, that they're not deceptive, that they're not trying to pull off some sort of something, that what they say is what they mean, that what I see is what I get, that they're trustworthy. Again, if I don't know that my submissive is trustworthy, if I cannot trust my submissive, that's a big problem, because if I can't trust something, I don't see value in it. And guess what? I don't invest in things I don't see value in. Okay? Second to last one, we've got a desire to serve, where the submissive gets pleasure from pleasing their dominant. I'm looking for that. Yes, I'm looking not just for a willingness to serve, but a desire. Acts of service is one of my love languages, okay? So that makes me happy. That pleases me. When things get taken off of my plate, that makes me happy. That makes me feel loved. That makes me feel cared for. And it really makes a very happy dominant. So I want my submissive to see that and to have a desire to serve to the extent that pleasing me pleases them. And I don't think I'm the only dominant that feels that way. Guarantee I'm not. Okay? So, and the last one here is trust in me. That's another thing I'm looking for from a submissive, is their ability to trust me. Just like my submissive has to be trustworthy, what I also need from them is they need to trust me. Now, I will work for it. I will earn it. I will be consistent in doing so, but they have to have the ability, the capacity, the willingness to extend their trust to me when I have earned it. Because if not, everything that I do, everything that I say will be met with their internal dialogue versus just happy silence and desire and pleasure and enjoyment.